I've even prayed to the devil, and I'm like, man, I get it. Been there, man. Been asked the devil to get me out of this shit, and I'll do whatever, you know. And trying to build a prison. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of the Thomas Free Me Show. Once again, I thank you for tuning in. Before you start the show, please, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, do all of that stuff, as it is the utmost importance to the growth of my show and getting my word out there. Please make sure to visit www.cominghomecoalition.com, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that has been founded by me for the people, for the community, and I am trying to stay privately funded so that it allows me to work within the community the way that I need to work. So please make sure to visit that, and there's all kinds of links and ways that you can subscribe, donate, and make sure to please visit what we're doing here in Pasco County called Project Inside Out with Shady Hills Mission Chapel. So please visit www.cominghomecoalition.com. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and please make sure to check out my book on Amazon, The Power of a Positive Mindset, for those who have an incarcerated loved one who just needs to change their mindset. You can find that on Amazon by simply just Googling Thomas Freeman. Thank you, and please enjoy the show.
Did you smoke when you were in prison?
As much as I could. But I had a time. I never caught a UA.
Never caught a UA? In 13 years, you never caught a UA?
A dirty one? No.
No. I'm saying, I thought you meant that you never.
No.
You never took
dirty,
one.
No. Mm-mm. I had my baby mom bring some weed into the prison.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was crazy. I got lucky.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I got real lucky. And the thing of it is that.
Where were you at?
In Mariana. And how I did it was.
In a medium? Fuck.
I got real lucky, man. And the dude found it. He felt it. You know what I mean? But he just overpassed it. But it was, you know, I was going to the visitations. I saw an opportunity. You know, and what that opportunity was cutting a little slit in the tongue of my shoe. You know, and just popping a couple little dime bags in there. After, when you go back for visit, all they do with your shoe is they just bend it in half, they shake it, tap it a couple times, look inside of it, and set it down. You know, it's like a 1 to 2 second process. So I told her, I said, you know, just put it in some dime bags, a couple dime bags, wrap it really, really tight, small. Try to get it as small as you can. And then when you come up, we'll get some popcorn, you know, and you just throw them in the popcorn. And then we just sit there and share popcorn, you know? So got the popcorn and we're just sitting there sharing popcorn. I reach in the bag, grab a little dime bag out, put it in my mouth, sit there for a couple seconds and spit it out of my hand, then act like I'm tying my shoe. You know, everything was just a process. I'd spit it in my hand, hold it there for a couple seconds and go on with a conversation, this and that, you know, reach down, tie my shoe, and I'd slip one in, bam, come back up, repeat the process till it was all in there. So now I tell her, I say, listen, get the hell out of here. You know, don't stall around, don't play around, get the hell out of here, because it's going to take me about 30 minutes to get out. You know, and if they find this stuff, you got to be out of this parking lot. She was scared to death. Bless her heart, man. Put her through some shit too. She deserved it. Anyhow.
God damn, man, really?
Yeah,
you ought to let that go, man. You ought to let that go, bro.
It's a hard thing to let go, man.
But I know it is, man. And listen. On a side note, I've been through some shit too, man. But it's better for you to let it go.
Well, of course it is. It's a process, you know.
I know.
But it's so. I go back now to the visitation. I'm cool, and go through the whole process. He picks up the shoes, bends them in half or whatnot, and he actually starts feeling the tongues. You know what I mean? And he felt them because he stopped for a second and he's feeling, but he can't really figure out where it's at or where, and then he just gave up on it. Or maybe he realized what it was and didn't even want to bother with it. Who knows? But what happened was he just threw my shoes down and I got dressed and went back to the dorm. And bitch, it was party central. You know, but I dimed them up. I made money. I wasn't there to smoke. You know what I mean? And the thing of it was, you know, the whole purpose of it was to make money, really to help her.
How much did she bring in there?
It was probably about a quarter.
Like 7 dime bags?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how many. I think it was about 3 or 4 dime bags. But
oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
But when I broke it down, it was probably about a quarter. You know, and then so I got about 220 dimes out of it. You know, we sat in the room, me and my celly, we sat in my room, we spread that shit out and just made little fucking dimes. Bam, 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 bam. Man, I made about 800 and some dollars off that. That's how much money you can make in prison, man. You can make money in prison. I've seen it. Seen a dude walk out of prison with 100 and some $1,000, man, when they took cigarettes out. And this dude was packing he was the #1 plumber. He was the #1 plumber in facilities. He was the emergency plumber, and him and the facilities plumber guy was, I know they were splitting the money because he gave him access to all the pipes that nobody could access but them too. He was just jamming them filled with cartons of cigarettes because the federal system was talking about pulling cigarettes out. So he's just jamming them full of cigarettes. And then, of course, when cigarettes went out, the price skyrocketed. 6 months after they took cigarettes out of federal prison, they were like $100 a pack.
I know when I got there in 2009, if you wanted a Marlboro 100, it was $20 for that cigarette.
One cigarette.
Yeah, one cigarette. Yeah, but what they would do is they sell a rip for $5, so they'd break that cigarette down into 5 rips. You know what I mean? Or 4 rips. You know, and what they would do is they would sell 3, sell 4, keep 1. You know what I mean? And that's what they always did. And I mean, it was so scandalous that they'd follow the cops around that chewed, and they'd pick their dip up and they dry it out and smoke that.
Absolutely. Or you had the groundskeepers that had access to where the little cigarette, their little smoking sections were.
Right.
And they'd break into those little boxes because they actually had locks on those boxes, and they'd break into those boxes and steal the cigarette butts.
Yep.
But the dip was the thing. You could always tell that it was chewed dip. But I didn't smoke in prison, not cigarettes.
Right. Well, yeah, because who knows where that's coming from.
Who knows where it's coming from.
Now, I'll tell you that when I was in my celly, he got 2 cans of Bugler in one time. And a can of Bugler is like 90 cigarettes, right? Mm-hmm. He sold each one on the compound for $1,200. He gave the officer that brought it in $300 per can. Those cans were like $60 a piece at the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to say about the cartons of cigarettes. This goes into the dilemma of how all of this stuff is getting into the prison to begin with. But when you have a officer that brings in 5 cartons of cigarettes, he spent, $450 on these 5 cartons, let's say. He knows that he's getting $1,500 on the back end. Or probably up front. He may even get it up front. Who knows, But that's how a lot of that stuff works. And then, a lot of these officers are meeting up with the wives or brothers or cousins out on the street, to bring into somebody that's in prison.
Yep.
We have guards that are gang members, so these are the atrocities of prison. But that's not what we came here for today, man. Today, what we came here to talk about is the fact that getting old sucks.
Yeah.
Like, this shit sucks, man. But it's okay in the sense, and that's what we really came to talk about. And we started this conversation earlier and decided, man, we could run a show on this right here because there's a lot of A lot of men our age just going through what we're going through, dealing with the things that we're dealing with, you know, but different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the society right now is just kind of, in a big jumble right now. You got women out here acting like men, men acting like women. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's on the take. All this truth is coming out about this and that and stuff like that. I'm out. Some of this stuff I'm here for, but you know, other stuff I'm not so much. Like me, um, like you said, getting older. Phew, man, it seems like it's just right around the corner that I'm not even gonna be here no more. You know what I mean? But it's like being in my 20s and 30s just went by too fast. You know?
And it keeps going faster, brother.
Yeah.
You know, I got an older friend, bless his heart, and it's like he told me, he says, Thomas, he says, whatever you do, don't waste your time. He said, because, you know, when you hit 40, it goes fast. When you hit 50, it goes faster. But before you know it, 60's on you and you don't even realize it. You know, so he's like, just make sure you take your time and enjoy life. You know, so true enough, you know, building this nonprofit, homie, like you see me, I work from sun up to sundown, but I enjoy it. This is my love. This is my passion. You know, I'm doing what I love to do. And although money's not there, like we were talking about earlier, you know, things are really tight, but we're in a comfortable place. We eat every night. We have a studio that we can podcast from, you know, and I just appreciate that. This is what I have right now. And I can't worry about what comes tomorrow. It just knows that, you know, I just know that God has me. He has me here, you know. So it's these are worrisome things, you know, and these are some of the issues we were talking about this morning, you know, just about we get into this position where my only focus is providing security for myself. I've spent my life providing security for so many other people. And then you sit back and you realize there's nobody here that's helping provide security for you. And what happens? What happens if I go out and something catastrophic happens tomorrow, today, and I don't have any support, no place to stay, nothing of that nature. And as I'm out here, you know, working with these homeless people, hearing these stories, your story about your injury, and hearing these stories over and over and over again about how these individuals even became homeless. It came from an injury on job, or, you know, just something occurred in their life. And the first thing I think about is, man, this could really happen to me in any moment.
Hmm. Yeah. That's like me, man. What happened with me? It's like I was good. Everything happened with me and my ex, and that was stuff that I had to go through court, going to probation, so on and so forth. But I realized in that moment that, like we were talking about earlier, I've realized that the problem in that relationship for me was there was no appreciation for what I brought. You know, um, I thought it was other things, but I realize now that's what it was. And that's what I'm living with now. It's like um, that whole thing. I was there for years. I gave more to those people than I gave to myself. And then when it was all over, you know, and at this point, it seems like it was inevitable, because there was really no way of turning back. It was nothing but disrespect, and I couldn't deal with that every day. I couldn't, because I was giving everything that I had to this, because I knew in the back of my mind, like what we're talking about, time is getting short, you know. So I'm focused on whatever I'm trying to do to get me secure, and if any, and whoever's there with me at the same time is, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't feel support, because I did. That was the entire reason why it got to where it got. But it's like we got to a point and it was just no longer, you go through that cycle sometimes with people. I just leave it at that, you know. But after I got out of there, I realized, man, I don't have anything, and I tried my ass off. I worked every day. I was doing the same thing like what I was doing in the beginning of my first lawn business. I'd get off of work and I'd go cut grass. And I'm talking about I'm out there doing industrial plumbing. We're doing lift stations and wastewater treatment plants. You know what I mean? So this ain't easy work. You know what I'm saying? And I come home and I'm cutting grass and stuff, and it ends up being that, you know, probably 10 months later, I get into a car accident. I'm just building back my life. I'm just really 10 months into it. Things are going good, but things ain't going great. You know what I mean? I'm holding on. I was doing a lot better than I am right this minute. Although I will say that my mental health is a lot better than it was at that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because once I got into that car accident, I really just, um, it was all about strategy then, and it just seems like every path that I took was the wrong one. You know what I mean? And I realized at that point that everybody was bailing on me. You know what I mean? And making their plans of going on wherever. And that was right about that time. My brother stopped paying rent. He started fixing parts on his car and this and that. You know, uh, my girlfriend at the time, which is still my girlfriend, she started giving more money towards the house that she was living in prior. So then that way it'd be like, almost like a welcome. You know what I mean? Anyway, so now I'm pretty, I'm left where I'm at, and I still have the same focus, but I'm still, reeling off of all this loss that I've had in the last year. And it's hard for me to, I'm moving forward, but it's like I feel like I'm not moving forward as fast as I would have if I was 20 years younger. I'd been more tenacious at that time, I guess you could say. This body's weary.
I'm tired of all the pain I feel in here in the world every day. There's too much of it. It's like pieces of glass in my head all the time. Can you understand?
Well, I think that's where a lot of like these midlife crisis things come from. These individuals. As I was saying earlier, I had an individual a little while back talk to me about how he just didn't feel like a man, and he
Right.
didn't know how to feel like a man. And of course, my first question was, well, what is your perception of a man? And I think that a lot of these younger guys now, their perception is a Hollywood based perception of what a man is supposed to look like, or based upon commercials and all of this stuff, their women's reaction to this Hollywood life and all that. So we form these perceptions of what we're supposed to look like, and then we look at ourselves in the mirror and we're like, I look nothing like this. And then we start doubting our women's respect in us, and it just spirals out of control into this quote unquote midlife crisis thing. So now I got this guy sitting here like, well, how do you be a man? I don't even know what it looks like. And it just gets into, I think we get to a point to where we're growing older, and our perceptions of life changes, our wants and needs change. Things aren't as important as what they were when we were 20 and 30 years old. And as you start getting closer to 50, like I'm gonna be 49 this year.
Right.
So as you get closer to that 50 mark, the significant mark, that's that now you're getting to a point to where you have less time on earth than what you've been here, statistically speaking. I mean, we never know.
I mean, be gone tomorrow. But I understand what you're saying. You're on the other side of the hill. It's like what we were talking about is we're really looking for comfort, you know, before we go, you know. I think that's what it really is, you know?
Well, it could be a number of things, I guess. I think security and comfort would be one of them. For me, it's I got to a point to where it's like, okay, Thomas, what do you want and who do you want to be? I look at these names that are still in existence after thousands of years. Socrates, Achilles, Hector, we just called him out the other day. You know, these names have existed through eons of time. And that's the thing is the significance of your life. So it's knowing that my time as a human being is coming to an end. We just saw Toby Keith, bless his heart, and his family, rest in peace, 62 years old. And that's 14 years away. It's already taken me 4 years to build this business to where I'm at, and it's just the beginning. So this is to build anything significant that can stand the tests of time takes time in itself. In order to build anything significant, it takes time and effort. And a lot of my frustration is knowing that the best part of my life, my prime, physically and mentally and motivation wise and inspiration wise, was given to the federal government, incarceration, prison. So now I'm coming out of prison at 40 years old with a whole new brain. A whole new brain. And it's like now I got this like compelling to just get things done. I don't have time for a relationship. I don't have time for frivolousness. I don't have time for conversations that don't have anything to do about production. I don't have time for it. I don't have time just to sit in meetings to hear people talk about things that they want to do. I'm about getting it done. Let's do it. Let's move forward. And that's kind of driving me mad. It's driving people around me mad as well, because getting into the relationship aspect, this is a drive of a healthy, motivated 20-year-old. And by the time an individual is 40, 45, almost 50, they should be in a state of winding down. Yeah, building for retirement. And so now me trying to get out and build a relationship under that aspect with a woman who's just looking for a man to settle down and walk a beach and watch sunsets and hold hands with, I'm not in that state. And that is a toxic concoction in itself, because I don't have the time to give to a relationship to be that representation like that. I'm on a grind, I may go 2-3 days without even talking or texting anybody because my mind is just so intent and focused on what it is that I got going on that's all I care about. I don't have time. I don't have time. I know I don't have time. Build and be the significant thing that I want. I want to build something that lasts generations, that helps people for generations on generations. Look at the founder of Red Cross. Look what that thought produced. An organization that generates money for help worldwide, around the world. And it all of it comes from a thought. Everything comes from a thought.
That's not everybody's story. You know what I mean? Sometimes people don't become who they're ultimately going to be until they've been through something. You know what I mean? And so for me, watching you do your podcast, do your show, do all this editing, yeah, I see where you're highly focused on this stuff. More focused than I would be. Because that's not my thing. You know what I mean? you know, my path is different at this point. You know what I mean? Because there's things that I feel like are missing in my life. But what I'm saying is in your situation, I think that what you're trying to do wouldn't come across the same way if you hadn't been what you'd been through. You understand? Because now it's not sympathy, it's empathy, right? So when you talk about these things and you do the things that you do, it's because you've been there. You know what I mean? Even when you're talking to these homeless people or whatever, you know, you've been there. You know what I mean? You might have somewhere to go. You might have had a roof over your head, but for all intents and purposes, you're homeless.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So you know what that is. And you know what it is to be close to it, as close as you can be, and saying, you know what, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna do something else with my life because I know I don't have a lot of time left and this is not where I want to be when it ends. You know what I mean? And the thing is like I think that's what happens to a lot of us men when we get to our mid 40s and stuff. You know, you take a look at your life and you say, I'm not happy with what I have to walk away with. You know, I wanted so much more. You know, so you go out there and you give it that Hail Mary, you know, that last hoorah. And I'm telling you, man, you know, you want to be a household name, you want to be remembered when you're gone, but imagine the people that you've already touched. You know what I mean? Think about those people. Think about the people that you talk to every day. Think about the people that you're not going to deal with because they're not honest. You left a lasting impression, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. You know, I know as a human being, I've been through a lot, man. You know, and it's not to get into anybody else's trauma or anything like that. I just know as a human being, I've been through a lot. But at 14 years old, you know, I was my first experience with isolation, you know, in JDC, because you don't have stellies in JDC. They just lock you in a cold cell by yourself. These things are still vivid in my mind, you know, vivid. Me just standing on that bunk and just beating on the plexiglass, and you know, and bass drum, you know, just things of that nature, and the molestation, and you know, just the darkness of prison, and what occurred in prison, and things that I've had to do just to survive. Just the root of all of that was just to get home in one piece. You know, either one of my parents died because I didn't want to have to experience that, you know, and then just coming home and going through all of what I've went through to get where I'm at today, man, is just, and I've done it against so much opposition. You know, I've never really had no kind of support. I've never really had no woman behind me, supporting me, standing behind me. You know, I've just always had to do it against opposition. You know, and like you say, when, you know, the relatability to so many, man, I know what darkness looks like, man. I know what not having no hope looks like. You know, like I was talking to the man the other day about his son being in jail on the charges that he's in, and he feels so hopeless. And he's like, you know, Thomas, he says, I know you understand, but he's like, I've even prayed to the devil. And I'm like, man, I get it. Been there, you know,
Yeah.
been there, man. Been asked the devil to get me out of this shit, and I'll do whatever, you know, and it's I know it, you know, and that's why I hurt for these people, man, because the weakness I see in them to just lay down and quit, you know, is like, man, but look at me, man. Look, that's, I know it. I've been there with you. I prayed to the same devil that you did. You know, but look, man, you know, you can do it. And it just gets hard, but all of us, man, there's so many people that are walking this planet that we're getting older and we're realizing that, what's the significance of our life? What are we doing here? And what is our purpose? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm not supposed to be sitting in this friggin' cubicle all friggin' day. You know what I mean? And going home, and I'm not supposed to be just sitting here watching sports every damn night, and arguing with this person I call my wife, and separating myself from these kids that I can't stand because they get on my nerves. That's not what my life is supposed to be. You know?
Sometimes I think you have to read between the lines. So, like for what you just said, you have to realize that you give people strength, show them strength when they've decided to lay down. You're showing them that. You're saying, hey, look, I've been through what you've been through, and you don't have to lay down. You can continue, and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Take it from me. I've seen it. I've been there. I got my own darkness to talk about. But guess what? That doesn't have to be your story. That doesn't have to be your fate. You can choose to do something else. And what you choose to do, Tom, is you choose to go out there and show people that feel like they have nothing and prove to them that that's not the case.
I
That's your
love
purpose,
people.
man. That's your
It
purpose
is.
right there. If you ain't never known it, now you do. You know? That's why you got the followers you do. That's why you got the people that live. This is only the tip of the iceberg. People, there's a lot of people in there that are in their careers for ever. Seems like forever. And I'm sure they go through the same type of emotional breakdown as everybody else. Just where am I going with my life? What am I doing? Why, I go through that too. I'm in it right now. I have no idea. I can draw. I'm good in the gym. I'm quite smart. I've been a painter for a long time. I worked in plumbing for 5-6 years. I got all these skills. I have no idea where I'm going next. You know, that weighs on me, and I know it weighs on people around me too because they see so much potential, and I'm just trying to figure it out. And that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. And you know why that's okay? Because I'm me. I've been through way worse than this. You know what I mean? And I made it out. But you know what I didn't do is I didn't regret whatever it was. I looked at it as it just part of who I'm gonna be later. You know what I mean? That this is just a stop. I feel like that sometimes. Sometimes you need the darkness to understand the light.
Absolutely. That's why God created it. It's because he knew that you wouldn't appreciate the light without the darkness. So we understand these things, and if we don't, we should. And that's what allows us to embrace the darkness and gives us the courage to walk through knowing that light is on the other side, because it's just in the game plan, you know. But it's still that driving force in you that you know like you said, the purpose, and I know that I know I've known that, because I have people reach out to me from all over the command. I wake up and I have messages upon messages upon messages on my Facebook Messenger, just about plights that people are going through and the issues, and how my podcast did this for them, or my voice helps them go to sleep at night, or my stories inspire them, or just so many different stories every day, you know, and I try to interact with as many people as I can. But again, all of this is time consuming in a sense where at the end of the day, you know, the reality of it is it takes money to live, it takes money to eat, it takes money to move around, it takes money to do these things, you know, and my generosity isn't for the rich, it's for the poor. You know, and the poor, what does the poor have to give? Nothing. And the rich don't like me helping the poor, so the generosity isn't there from them. So it's like I'm caught in this middle as to what do I do? You know? Because at the end of the day, I have to give so much time and effort to these individuals my kinfolk, but then I got to turn around and figure out ways to generate money to keep all of this stuff moving and flowing too.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I think about that too. Like right now, the job that I have, it's like I'm working like 2-3 days a week at $16.50 an hour. I used to make $4,000 a week, and that was a year ago. You know what I'm saying? And I just sit here and I'm just like, wow, what a change, you know, in just everything. You know what I mean? And it's like here I am. It's like I've tried to go get other jobs, and I put in 100 applications. You know, I got a few called back, but it's like some of them are just I have no vehicle at this point, and I can't really rely upon somebody else's vehicle at this to be able to get me back and forth to something that's going to be worth it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so I'm kind of like just spinning my wheels right now, and it sucks. So I hate it because it's like I got somebody that's counting on me. Besides myself, I got somebody else that's counting on me. And it's just like I can't seem to be able to pull it out. Like
no, you're in a real tough situation too, man. You know, you're in a real tough spot that would break most men down. You know, and that's a thing too. You know, like you're a man who, a lot like me, really don't have anything to provide. You know, for anything but yourself. With like, it's like you're in a position where you have to depend on someone else for a vehicle. You have to depend on someone else for a job. You have to depend on, and it's so hard, especially in this area of the environment that you're particularly in, because in the Tampa Bay area, if you do not have a vehicle, you cannot survive. Because it's not like you can just walk somewhere. It's not like you can just get up and walk down and get a job, 3 blocks over or anything like that. Like there's hardly anything within walking distance.
Right.
So without any sort of transportation, you will starve to death here in the Tampa Bay area. The public transportation sucks, but people find ways to get it done. But again, it's all of what goes into that, and that doesn't fit into everybody's life schedule, because the bus system is not efficient, but life is efficient.
Well, that just means, men are solutions type people. Men are fixers. So you just got to realize when you're in that situation where you feel like you're at the end of your rope and you don't have any type of anything, it's just like you got to realize, man, your biggest asset was, and will always be you. You know what I mean? Like we lose ourselves sometimes. You know what I mean? Because we don't realize that we be listening to the haters sometimes. You know what I mean? And just life happens too.
It's
and,
that, but it's the situation that you're in, right? Just again, there's a lot of men that are in your situation, right? Both parents are deceased for the most part, because your dad is deceased for the most part in your life. He's still living, but there's just no contact, nothing there. So you have both parents deceased. You're 43 years old. You're a convicted felon. You have nowhere to go, right? You have nothing to call your own, Nothing, not even a
Right.
vehicle. You have a female who you know isn't very big on moral support, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's mostly because she needs a lot too.
Right. She's in her own toxic state. So, but the fact is that you have a female that you're trying to provide for that does not give you a lot of moral support, right? Doesn't keep you highly motivated. And you have a brother, the only other person in your life that is probably the most draining, cancerous thing in your life.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that you as a human being are totally alone, and the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you have a part-time job, and so it's understanding that you as a human being have a lot to deal with and cope with on an everyday, minute to minute basis. And as you were saying earlier, you're 43, your time is ticking, and you're starting to realize, that a lot of the stuff that you've done just isn't worth it. All the arguments over Facebook and all of this stuff, because you're like, hey, wait a minute, man. Like
right. It's games, man. It's like you entertain a clown, you're gonna be part of the circus, man. You know? And that's how I feel sometimes, but it's like at the same time I also understand, when we're talking about her, she's going through some shit too. You know what I mean? And now she's doing a little bit better than I am, but she's got a car. Or what little of a car she has.
She has access to a car.
Right. Right.
But both of you are in a position where neither one of you have a vehicle.
Right. No, we don't have a vehicle. And then I'm supposed to get this settlement, and I don't know what's going on with this thing, man. You know what I mean? I have full faith that it's going to end up being whatever it's got to be. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it's got to be. I know I'm going to walk away with something, but I might not be happy about it. But at the same time, it's like, I got to remember, man, I can't waste it. It's one of the only blessings that I have. Like, everything's a blessing. Don't get me wrong.
Everything is a blessing.
But it's when we mess our blessings up, I think is when we pay the most.
And it's hard. It's like in your case with the lawsuit. You were sideswiped. This altered your life completely, detrimentally. And at the end, you're getting $25,000 out of this suit. You had to fight tooth and nail. You had to go and get jabs in your neck over all of this stuff and whatnot, right? It messed up your neck, your body. You're dealing with the after effects of that, which I had to witness firsthand of the pain and agony that you've been over some of these things, right? And you get $25,000, and then the lawyers
are taking 8 right off the top.
Right off the top.
And then they're supposed to be really directing me on where to go and what to do and what I'm looking at and all this other stuff. This is supposed to be sound legal advice. I talked to my lawyer the other day and he tells me, oh yeah, we're just waiting for PIP to come in and pay for some of your medical. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I owe on medical? $12,000. Those 2 shots costed $12,000.
Six a piece.
So when you take $8,000 off for them, you take $12,000 off for the doctor, because who knows if PIP is going to cover it or not. They've covered some stuff, and I'm just going to sit here and hope. And he's like, well, you got to be patient. Don't worry, it's going to be good. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be good for somebody, the doctor, but I'm going to sit over here after losing my whole life, my business, having to get shots in my neck and all this other stuff, and being the number one provider, not just for me, but for when my brother was living there also. I lose all this. I lose all this status because these people, at the end of the day, they don't give a fuck, man. And that's the thing you got to realize.
Yeah, and you got some silk suit you know, with I'm sure his fridge is filled with food. He probably lives in a huge mansion. He's probably got 5 refrigerators, you know. So you got this silk suit just telling you to sit there and be patient as you're sitting here with nothing.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. And you got some silk suit telling you to be patient. We're going to get you your money. You know, and so you're in a tough spot too, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just thinking about it now. He called me on the day that he settled, and he was like, "Man, good news, man, good news." And I'm just sitting here, and right now I'm thinking, "Yeah, good news. You called me twice. You know, called me twice, and you just got $8,000.
Hmm.
I'm glad I could help you out, buddy."
But we start thinking about these things, you know, and then I look at, you know, my father, you know, as he just built it, the little shelf and stuff in there. Like my father, I look at my father, he used to be a strong, burly man and did everything himself. And he'd have his pencil in his ear and be whipping his tape measure around and be grabbing saws and cutting wood and doing all this stuff and building these beautiful, fantastic things, you know, and now just to build a little shelf, you know, just wore him out completely, you know, and to watch him try to hold a tape measure and his hand shaking and he can't really read it and stuff. And the depression, you know, the depression that he gets into because of that. You know, and then in the back of my mind, I'm, you know, man, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to grow old like that. You know, I don't want to grow old like that. I don't want to be incapable. You know, I don't want to be able not to do things. And
Right. I see your dad, and I'm like, you're sitting here talking about 62. I'm like, bro, you're only halfway there, man. You're only halfway there, man.
my
You're gonna be
father's
sitting there.
85.
Yeah, you're gonna be most likely that house is probably gonna be left to you, you know, and you're gonna be 85, 90 years old, sitting in the garage with your Doberman, smoking cigarettes. You know what I mean? That's probably gonna be you, Tom.
I don't expect anything. I don't look for anything. And whatever comes my way is just a blessing, you know?
Right.
But I don't even want to deal with it anymore. I don't even want drama anymore. I don't want to argue about material stuff anymore. You know, if people want to sit here and argue and fuss over material things, man, you can have it. Just take it.
Well, see, that's pretty much where I'm at. Like, that's one of the things we touched on too. Is like, for me, materialistic stuff doesn't really bother me that much. It never has. I've never been one of those type of dudes. You know what I mean? I think that's the reason why it never was things for me to have a house, me to own my own house, or have like a slew of cars or anything like that, because materials just, I don't know. You know, I enjoy them for a little bit, but then they kind of lose their, you know, their awe, I guess you could say,
Sure.
nostalgia. They lose their nostalgia, and then I'm on to the next thing, and you know, and maybe that's a prerequisite for my life. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm with something for a little bit, and then it bores the shit out of me, and I'm on to the next thing. Who knows? You know what I mean? Um, but I don't know, man. I think we're gonna be okay. You know, I'm gonna keep on trying to move forward. I'm gonna keep on trying to fight the good fight. You know, hopefully it all works out. I'm still here,
Oh,
43.
we ain't got
I'm
no
not gone.
choice.
So, and you neither, man. You ain't gone neither, man. You're still here. You're still doing your thing. You know, and we're gonna have ups and downs, man. We're gonna have days where it just seems like, man, you're just doing this for nothing.
I'm gonna continue to, man, and I'm not gonna go to no doctors and you know, I'm not gonna do none of that stuff, man, because again, at the end of the day, I don't want to know that I'm dying. I don't want to know that I got cancer. I don't want to live in that state of depression all the time and people feeling sorry for me. And I don't want that. I just rather just wake up one day and pass out and be dead. But who knows? Right before that happened, I may just seen the most glorious thing in my life. You know, I don't want none of that stuff. I just want to live my life each day and just be joy and help people and make people happy, and just I want people to get along and love each other and be confident in themselves, like we were talking earlier, and not worry about what the next person thinks about them, and just know that they're special by themselves. Like you're the only person on this planet. There's no one else like you, and find joy in that and find the love in that, knowing that you have the opportunity to do something that nobody else can do or has done, you know? And it's like find that purpose. Get out of this cubicle. Get out of traffic. Get out of having to speed up and brush your teeth while you're grabbing your briefcase and run out in the traffic and speed through traffic honking at everybody because you're going to be 2 minutes late. Like you, the one day we got to get you to the job and we're 2 minutes late and the guy's in the truck waiting on you. Like, are you coming? We're like, we're right around the corner, asshole.
Meanwhile, he's got me working 2 days a fucking week.
It's a part-time job. You know what I mean? It's like,
you know what I mean? It's like he tells me, hey, 8:30 to 2:30, 8:30 to 3:30 every day, don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. Well, before he was paying me by the day. And now I understand why it was really a detriment to him, because he was paying me $150 a day. And then we'd get out there and we ain't working them hours. We're getting off at 2:00. I'm like, what the fuck? Bro, you didn't even start till 8:30. And then I get here at 8:30 and half the time, actually really probably about 85% of the time, yo ass ain't out the house till fucking 10 minutes till 9. Garage door closed. I'm supposed to be ready. And he's like, well, if I don't come down, just find something to do until I do come down. And I'm just like, man, you see, I just want all you men out there that are watching this, right, to realize sometimes you have to eat a mile of shit to get to the other side. Remember, Andy Dufresne. Remember him. Because sometimes that's how it is. You got to eat them. You got to go through a mile of shit to come out on the other side, man.
And what allows you to swim through that shit is your vision on the other side. You're not swimming through that shit saying, oh man, look at all this shit. You're swimming through that shit saying, man, when I get to the other side of this motherfucker here, it's golden. And that's just what it is. That's exactly right. So
well, that's what I think of. That's what I think of when anytime anything gets hard. It's like, you know what? Like you say, God will provide whatever it is that I need today. You know what I mean? And just be, thankful and grateful for whatever it is that you have today. And tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow you might hit the lottery. Tomorrow you might get a phone call that says, man, I want to give you $50,000, man. Take half of it, put it in your business, and take the other half and do whatever it is that you need to do to make sure you're straight.
Absolutely could.
Yeah, I mean,
my email's always open for it.
Hey, me too, bro.
I would love for somebody to come in and say, we love what you're doing, we see what you're doing, and we want to, financially back you and provide the comfort that you need to help as many people as you can, man. I mean, that in itself would, and I'm building for it. If that's what God has for me, I'll just, each day I get up and I just try to prepare for it. So that's it. Just live in the moment, man, and enjoy what you have right now. Be proud of who you are, because first and foremost, if you've made it 40 plus, you've been through some shit, man. Nobody has lived 40 plus years on life, on earth, and not been through some shit.
Period. Yeah. But then if you add in drug addiction and prison to it, you're like, well, that's level 2 and 3 right there.
So it's, be proud of yourself and who you are. And like Tony had said earlier, no regrets. I don't regret anything in my life because I love who I am. Sure, there's some things that I'm sorry for, and sure, there's things that I probably could have done differently. But at the end of the day, I'm here and I love who I am. I love what that sculpted me into, and I have to appreciate everything that I've been through. in order to love who I am today. So it's knowing that yesterday was yesterday, tomorrow is tomorrow, but you are who you are today, and just be the best in that moment. So great discussion, man. For all of us that are getting older out there, just embrace it. And if you're looking for your question in your manhood and your manship, it's really just about finding your purpose and walking in that purpose, regardless of what anybody else thinks you should be doing or anything of that nature. You're crazy for quitting your career and going rock climbing. Go do it, but make a career out of it. Like we're building for Tony. Tony's thing is the gym. He can't stay out of it. He can stay in the gym for hours at a time. So then build behind that. That's your purpose, because you can help people heal through your gym, through your working out, through your exercise. So it's take that and build a career behind it. And each of us can do that. You don't have to be making these corporate entities all of these monies and dedicating your life and sacrificing your life to some corporate entity. Do it for you and your family. And maybe you'll start to feel better. Maybe you'll start to feel more quote unquote manly, So thank you for the discussion, man.
Yeah, man.
Great talk. Y'all stay safe, man. We out.